All right, welcome everybody to this special episode of Never Give Up Radio. Obviously, this is something that we felt as a staff and a community that we wanted to get out to you guys. There's a lot going around the internet, the social media, the news, different outlets, and it's kind of caused a whole new conversation that a lot of people are worried about and have questions about, are panicking about, have fear about, stressed about, you name it. We're getting a lot of questions on social media, and we really wanted to kind of bring out something and bring in some medical personnel. Obviously, our co-founder, Albie Daly, is currently in medical school right now, and we thought we'd bring him on and get our director of social media on as well, who's been fielding some questions and try to get it on air. So welcome everybody.
Yeah,
I guess the boys are back in town.
It's good though. I mean, it's obviously, like Liam says, it's something that you don't really want to get back together and talk in this time. But given my understanding, I think of kind of what's going on and some of the questions that Sean and Liam have been getting, we felt it was necessary to kind of just get on, talk, and just provide kind of like a sense of calmness, especially to our community who follows us. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Sean.
No, I disagree. I mean, I think people just have a lot of questions, and I have a lot of questions, and people panic when it comes to stuff like this when maybe they shouldn't be panicking.
All right, Albs, let's. I want to dive right into this one. The first things first is, should we panic? I know everybody right now is in an absolute panic. It's crazy. I can't even go to the grocery store and get toilet paper. And I'll be honest, I do need some toilet paper right now, and there's nothing on the shelves here in Pittsburgh.
First off, sorry about the no toilet paper. The question of should we panic is a really difficult thing to assess. It really depends, and I think it comes down to a few different questions when you're looking at the situation as a whole. The first question is, who are you in contact with on a day-to-day basis? For example, I'm 26. I live with my girlfriend who is in her 20s. We're young, we're healthy, we have no pre-existing conditions. I don't worry about COVID-19 on a day-to-day basis for my, individual life and my direct contacts. With that said, it's a virus, and what viruses do is they spread. And I think that's the first thing that people kind of need to understand here. It's going to spread, and it's going to infect people. Now, with all of that out of the way, as most people know, the real at-risk populations are the very elderly, and I think the statistics right now currently show 80 is about the age, in terms of just strictly age, that you'd be worried about it, and then people with comorbidities, and then I'd say probably children less than 6 months of age. To answer the question directly, should we panic? I think there's going to be some panic, and for me, the panic is more about resources in terms of hospital beds and access to care for those who really need it. And the panic is really more about if I get it and I infect someone who can't handle the infection. Now, again, with all of that said, should people panic? The real answer to that question is no, because panic just leads to mass hysteria and it leads to irrational decisions. And right now, I think the best thing you can do is take the preventative measures that I'm sure we'll get to with some of the questions. But I just want to be clear with everyone. This is a virus. Viruses spread. This is not a very highly infectious virus in terms of its virulence and the things that it does. I'll take that back. It's very infectious, but the symptoms that result from the virus, are not that severe for people who can handle it. So I think the panic needs to calm down a bit, and people can go to sleep knowing that they don't have to worry if they do get COVID. Typically for more than 85% of the population, they're going to be able to handle it very well.
All right, so just to stop you there, I mean, if we're talking about this COVID-19 or coronavirus, what exactly is that? Because, a lot of people, I think you turn on the news and you're like, what is COVID-19 or, what is coronavirus? We all know that it's something that's out there right now. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so without getting too much into the details, and obviously, like you said, I'm still a student, so I don't know every little last biological detail. But what I do know is that this is an RNA virus. It's very similar. It comes from the same family as the SARS virus did. So what basically happens is through transmission, and the transmission pattern is called respiratory droplets, which is basically coughing and sneezing. There's also been direct contacts that have been reported to date. So if you shake someone's hand, you can get it through that mechanism as well. But the virus itself is basically, what's kind of scary about the virus is it's evolved to basically last, and it's morphed. So it's exhibiting something called tropism. So the virus is exhibiting the ability to change along its course, which has been making the treatment for this particular SARS virus pretty difficult. And where does it go? If we want to get more into the details of where it goes typically into the lungs and binds to a receptor within the lungs in the respiratory tract.
All right. So I feel like a lot of people, you're either on the side of saying I'm not panicked, I really don't care about this whole thing, or you're on the side of saying, I'm terrified, I'm panicked, I'm going to my bomb shelter, I'm never coming out. If you're on the side of saying like I'm not panicked, and you're wondering why everybody else is panicking, I mean, what do you have to say to that? If I shouldn't panic, why is everybody else?
It's a good question, because I think that right now we're kind of at a split where, just like you said, you do have people who say, if I get it, I'm going to be completely fine, so I don't fear it. So I'm just going to go on with my day-to-day life. Now, what I would say is where kind of are we with humanity, right? Because, like, from my perspective, I know if I got COVID, I would not really develop many clinical symptoms. I might get, a little bit of a fever. I might get some headache. I might have a little bit of a dry cough, but I would be fine within 2 weeks, most likely. And, however, I'm concerned about the virus because the really scary thing about a virus like this, and this virus itself, is it's highly virulent. So what that means is if I get the virus, there's the opportunity for me to spread that up to 5 people, according to some of the stats to this point. So what I would tell people is, no, you should not panic, and you should go along with your day-to-day life. You should make some changes. You should avoid large crowds. But at the same time, you need to take steps to limit the spread. Because if you get the virus and you just say, you know what, I'll beat it. I'm just going to keep going out in public. I'm going to keep going out and shaking people's hands. I'm not going to take measures to limit my exposure to other people. You're going to go and give that to someone who really can't be able to handle it, and or won't be able to handle it, rather. And that's when this gets scary. Is that's kind of why I think now the social isolation thing has become a little bit more real, and that's why businesses are closing down, because we just want to limit people's contacts. Most likely, the reason for doing that is because, one, the hospital system can't handle the vast number of people who would get the disease if we just went around spreading it like crazy, because it would spread like crazy. Two is that, think of your family. There's probably people in your family who probably wouldn't be able to handle the disease. And for me, at least in my eyes, if I got the disease, the first thing I would do is lock myself in my room, because I wouldn't want to infect anyone in my family, and I wouldn't want to infect someone in someone else's family. So I think that's where we're at the current rate. I hope that answers your question. And really, the panic, it's hard to say that it's unjustified because it's a large virus, right? And it's spreading, and there's a lot of people that can be affected and families that can be affected. However, I do think that people who are generally healthy, they should live knowing that, this really wouldn't lead to too many clinical symptoms in their circumstance.
So I got to ask you, Sean, I'm going to cut you off here.
You're good, sorry.
When you talk about like the symptoms and everything, what do you do, and how do you know when it's not just the mental health part? I mean, you talk about all the symptoms of, am I actually suffering from mental health? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it just fear or stress? At what point do you know that, okay, wait, maybe this isn't mental health, maybe I actually am sick, or is it the complete flip of that, where it's, okay, maybe I'm not actually sick, I'm just even more anxious because I'm more worked up about this stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because it's easy in a time like this for us to sit here and just say every time we cough, oh my God, I have coronavirus. But what I've been telling the people closest to me, and what the advice that I've been given from some really knowledgeable people that are kind of on the front lines of the virus, is that, if you have symptoms such as a fever, if you have a dry cough, if you're nauseous, if the fever is really the big one with this, but any symptoms of like the common cold or the flu at this current juncture, because they're all very similar,